Hello everybody, welcome to DM Talks, a podcast that aims to promote well-being and assist healing, whether that be physically, mentally or spiritually. Ultimately, we just want to be seen in our entirety, and this podcast hopes to show listeners how multifaceted they are. We're all the centre of our own universe, so why don't we do more to better our own existence? Ooh. Welcome everyone to your favourite wellbeing podcast. I'm your host Sarah DM, and I am excited for this episode today. It's been a long time coming. It's been a very long time coming, and I am even doubly excited because I am also joined by a guest that I've known for a very long time. And we've both seen each other grow in different aspects of our lives, and it's just sick because we're ultimately living our truth and just doing us. And welcome to the stage, the virtual stage, Emily. Woo!
Hello. It's so nice to be here. It's so nice to see your face.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm so good. I'm doing just studying and just focusing on wellness.
Yes.
Just being happier with myself. But it's just I was thinking over the past few days, just like it's been like 9 or 10 years since we met each other.
Oh my goodness.
We were just so weird. I was like a whole different person, and like I mean you were as well. I feel like you were a slightly more fully formed person than I was back then, but
do you think I've changed much?
No, I think that, the things that were there that I I was both so impressed by and intimidated by when we were younger was just, your confidence and your sense of self, which, have only developed as you've moved away from kind of people telling you that you shouldn't have those things.
Yeah,
whereas
you're right.
I didn't have those things as much, whereas, I've met people, I've been inspired by people.
Oh, stop it.
To work on those things for myself. But yeah, no.
Oh my god.
You're just a better version of yourself. Not that you were ever bad.
No.
That's what you want.
Oh no, that's really nice to hear. And you're right, it is what you that's what we want. But I asked because like for me, even like obviously we've changed, we developed, we mature, right? But I think with me and my sort of transparency of like self, or like my like sort of mannerisms, I haven't changed at all. Like I feel like I'm still very like energetic. I'm still very like curious. I'm still very I don't know. I asked it because I think I haven't changed that much from like my younger self to who I am now. I think I know more shit now, but like I don't feel that much difference. I feel like I'm just like, hey guys, like how you doing?
But that's so like, as I'm sure we'll get into later, that's so remarkable though, because people didn't want you to be like that. They didn't want you to be to have those things. But I was just thinking, I had a little like, it's very cheesy, like a little Sarah memory. Do you remember we had to go do those incredibly cringy discos at like Christmas, where it was just all of the girls?
Yeah.
Christmas dinner. And I was so, because, I'm not very good at sports, I'm not very good at things that involve moving. But, and I'd never kind of thought of dancing as like a thing to do. And but then I'm like slowly like getting into it, like moving a little bit. And I did something and you were just like, yes, Emily! And you were like trying to pump me up about dancing. And I was like, oh my god, maybe I'm not as terrible at dancing as I thought I was.
I got you, Emily.
Just stuck with me. I'm still bad at dancing, but I don't care anymore.
But that's what you should be. Everybody can dance. Everybody in this world can dance. Just spend 5 minutes with me and I'm sure I can move you too. Like, I find it funny because like one thing that I think that hasn't changed about me is the way that I'm just a fan in it. Like I'm just I pep talk people. I'm a hype man. Like I'm just here like, look, you're a baddie, you can do this. Like come on, who did that assignment? Yeah, you got that assignment. Like sometimes it would be a bit more, assertive, like as you would know in some classes, because it'd be like, oh, I did get an A, didn't I? Because I loved being salty. But it was all good times, and well, good times and bad times, but funny experiences nonetheless. But let me take you to the first segment, as we were on such high notes, which is the divine. And the divine is where you nominate a good thing, nominate something that's brought light to you. And I want to nominate learning. And I know sounds odd, but one thing that I am really grateful for is the fact that I am able to sort of understand what type of learner I am. So, I think it's something that you kind of become familiar with when you're in little school. Like, are you a visual learner or are you a procedural learner? Like, all of those kind of things. Probably more so in your adulthood because you're able to develop them with research, and you're able to, I guess, use the time management as you have as an adult to understand what kind of learner you are. So I think the fact that I'm able to sort of appreciate and absorb information in a visual way or like a physical way helps me really understands the process and the translation and the promation into things. And that can start from literally like source. Remember when we used to do source work in history, like, and seeing how things like would connect, or like, let's say it was a bad source, it's like, no, dead end because they use this type of thing. Seeing all of that but in a mind map, or seeing that in a I don't know, conversation with you and a friend when we were revising for exams or whatnot, was really helpful to, well, getting the information in and using it to, well, help. But I mean, we're going to get into why education, the pros and cons of certain education, but what would you say is your type of learning style?
I don't know, maybe what's like reading. Just reading. I don't know. I'm not good on the kind of like too visual things. I never did any tricks or anything. People had all these beautiful mind maps of the cards and things. I'm very lucky. Like I can revise by reading and writing notes and then regurgitate it outwards. I mean, I very much like, as you get into uni, it's so lovely to have conversations which spark your brain. And so, yeah, I guess I learn as well by just engaging with other people, which is something I'm very lucky to do.
No, I mean, it's right, because I think some of the first forms of that, which I really recognised, was when we would be in history classes together. And because, like, yeah, we were taking notes, but because our teacher was active and motivated and, like, was dancing and prancing around the bloody classroom, we were engaged and it got us entertained.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he really cared about it as well. I mean, to an extent, of course, like, to be able to succeed in, like, exams and things, you need to know what learner you are, but at the same time, you just need someone who, like, wants to teach you and wants you to get there. Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Someone like our history teacher.
Sorry, it just broke up a little bit. No, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so someone like Mr. Sharkey, that's who you're talking about.
Yeah, he was such a sick guy.
Yeah, because he really cared, and, like, no matter what kind of learner you are, that, like, transmits,
Mm-hmm. What is your nomination for the divine?
I had a feeling that you kind of, like, got ahead of me on this one because it was kind of similar. I read for one of my courses where I'm learning about the American slaveholding South. Like, after the Civil War and Reconstruction, where for a brief time they actually thought, oh, maybe African Americans deserve some sort of effort on the behalf of the government for everything they've gone through and to be part of this, society. And part of that, of course, was education. It was setting up schools. It was making sure that they got the same amount of funding. So I read this book called Educational Reconstruction, which was about how, for a brief time, in Alabama and Virginia, there were these there was just progress. There was just like, oh yeah, you do deserve education.
Yeah, tell me about this book, Emily.
Well, the more I learn about, especially Southern American history and just the absolute passion and longing for education. Education is liberation, and that people knew that even when they couldn't read or sign their own name. And so, you know, I'm now at a point where I've got more education than the majority of people in the world, and the more I read about it, the more I like feel that as just such a wonderful, amazing thing.
Well, it's like... Sorry, go on.
Oh no, you go, because I was going to say something completely different.
I was going to say, well, it was just like that opportunity, that access. It's literally like so it's such a privilege, and it's such a responsibility to like share, you know, because it's like we have been gifted with such resources that have just expanded your worldview, and that's something to be shouted about.
Yeah, exactly. I came up with one as well that was slightly less on topic for this.
Yeah.
Have you heard of 20s?
What's 20s?
It's
Nah.
a TV show. Do you know Lena Waithe?
Yes, I do know her.
Yeah, so it's a new TV show she's created, and you know I love TV shows that are like light and fun and fun. They also have a little bit of bite, and it's a show about a black queer woman trying to make it in Hollywood. So it's fun, but it's also got that bite. So yeah, it's just really funny, and it's also really short, so you can just like munch through it, which is what I like about TV shows as well.
I feel like it will be good to like find out more about her experience, because I know that she obviously like she's produced quite a few films and documentary. No, she's quite involved in like the media industry. However, I do know as well, I'm not sure, I feel like I need to read more about them. Like I need to read more about her to like watch it, because I feel like I haven't heard that much about her, so I need to check this out.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. It was just something that I kind of caught the other day when I was just like, what do I watch now?
Yeah.
And I know that she makes some, you know, like with her fashion and with like with her own shows, she's been really kind of focused on discovering new like African American talent. I know she's on Master of None, which was Aziz Ansari's show, and obviously he's a bit.
Do you know what I mean? Because that's the thing. It's like, oh, I really want to support you. I really want to back you. But then also because Hollywood screams such a toxic culture and so many different, margins, it's hard to consciously decide what I want to take from it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that I think she was involved with like Aziz Ansari before the kind of Me Too stuff happened about him. And, like, as artists, like, how else would she kind of like display, like, what would be her platform if she wasn't having to engage with these? Possibly in the future they'll come out as like problematic practices or something, but as a person she seems really cool.
Yeah.
Projects are good.
No, I want to just read more about her, because it's just something to read about, do you know what I mean? But definitely thank you for the shout out, because I really want to I need more shows to watch. I've rewatched The Good Place, so like now I'm bored, so I need to watch another show. It's that or cartoons for me, but we'll delve straight into it, you know. I am going to take you to Decoding the Messes. Okay, amazing. Hi guys, we are back from a fiasco of technological nonsense, and we're up and we're great, and we're going straight into Decoding the Messes. Decoding the Messes is where we talk about mess that we want to unpack. This episode is called Power versus Prejudice, and me and Emily want to talk about education, in particular fee-paying schools and our relationship with those. And yeah, just where do we start? Like, so we met at a boarding school. Was that your first boarding school?
I didn't board. Yeah, so I went to state schools, and I was basically suggested to me that I could try and get into a private school as a kind of like, well, that'll be better than the school that you'd otherwise be going to. And yeah, so I got in on a like a bursary place, and yeah, to me it was, it was like small, got lots of attention from teachers. There was definitely like a feeling of being nurtured, which is and also I wasn't having a great time at my old schools. Like, I got bullied and stuff. So for me, it was like definitely a blessing. But at the same time, I was always told that, like, it'll be different. It'll be, it's going to be a lot. The girls have so much. And I don't know where it came from, whether it was my parents or being told, yeah, all these girls have so much stuff and you don't. But I always had this impression that, like, I had to earn it, which is so weird because no child should have to, like, those kids didn't do anything more special than me to get into this private schools. In fact, they did less. But I was always feeling like, I always felt a bit, a bit different, obviously, because I wasn't rich and my parents didn't pay for me to go there. And yeah, I didn't board, but I always got the impression that would be quite a stressful thing to do, and I was glad that I could go outside of school and be back in like a normal life for a bit.
Yeah, no, I think that transition was mad because before 2012 or 2011, I'd never slept over school. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd never, boarding was completely foreign to me. Like, private school was foreign to me. Like, I went to a school, I think it was like, when a grammar school and then a Christian school, like, joins up. I think it was one of those, like, ecumenical? Is that the word? I don't actually really know. But I went to that school for middle school, and then after that, you go to, like, Windsor Boys or Windsor Girls, and then there's related sixth forms, or like there was loads of places near, we weren't close to London, do you know what I mean? I was even looking to London for colleges, which I find mad because I feel like my life would have taken me to a different route to where I am now, especially in relation to media. And when oh my goodness, I always remember my first day at boarding school being so, I just felt so out of place. I mean, not even for the first day, it was for the following 2 years, but the first week or so, I don't think I spoke. I literally just said, like, which is weird for me because I fucking speak all the time. Like, do you know what I mean? I didn't speak. I was just, for a very long time, I was just scoping everyone out. I was like, how the fuck did I end up here? Like, I was just so confused.
I remember, I don't know how long after you got there that it was that we kind of like made a connection. You probably saw that my face is quite similar to my twin sister's face or something.
It was you and another girl that I'd known before. I swear I'd met you through her. That's what I thought.
I don't think so, because I didn't go to I didn't go to the same first school, but I knew a few of your friends from when I was at first school. And obviously you met Lucy, but I kind of felt like it's gonna be like weird because I went to a private school all the way through secondary school, but like I always had that feeling of like out of placeness. And now that I think we're going to be talking more about like the schools kind of like top down, but especially that came from the girls. Like, once they found out that I wasn't like fee paying, some of them were just like just treated me like scum on their shoe. Not a lot, and not all the time. It wasn't like bullying or anything, like, but it's like,
regardless if it's an isolated incident or if it's repeated every day, it still was done. And that is not, like, that is such an ugly rhetoric to be around when you're that young and that vulnerable,
But that's why when we met and I was like, all right, she's actually lived in the world and she has met normal people. I say this, she's lived in the world. We were both like 13.
But it's true. Do you know what's so funny? I remember used to being like, well, to be fair, I think it was different because you obviously, like, we had different experiences with the school. Like, yes, there was experiences with my peers, but also the experiences are with teachers. And I think because I had to navigate the two, I had a different, like, I just didn't, it's weird. It was like, oh, if you want disrespect, everyone was gonna get the disrespect. I didn't really like see the hierarchy. I just saw teachers and peers the same. Like I was just like, toxic energy, just stay away from me. That's how I kind of like, except for some nice ones. Shout out Mr. Sharkey again, because he was great. I think also, actually, I'll bring this later in the episode, but he's another person who I do think his teaching style was different. It was needed, you know?
Yeah.
But sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I can't even remember. I think, I didn't kind of appreciate probably until much later, and especially after we started having these conversations in summer, how different our experience was. Because for me, it's like at school, the teachers were, you know, they saw this kind of slightly ragamuffin but incredibly like earnest, hardworking and like bright
so
child,
hardworking.
and they were like and they were like, oh my god, we'll look after you. And so and you know, they were kind of like my safe space against like the sometimes the kind of aggression of the girls, which you know, I didn't realise until much later you didn't have, but I kind of was like, oh yeah, she kind of gets that these girls have a completely different worldview and like set of experiences from like the majority of people.
No, do you know what I remembered from our phone call in August? You made me laugh. It was like we were talking about our experiences, and it was like, yes, of course, 12-year-old Emily, we don't all need to hear about politics. We're 12. It's just like, I just find that hilarious, because I just remember you literally just walking around, be like, but guys, please, and I was just like,
oh god, it was when how long ago was it? When I was like 13, so like 2010 election, and like I think it might have been the Lib Dems who proposed like a tax on houses worth more than like £3 million, and these girls were going around going like, the Lib Dems want us to be homeless, and I was like, that's not quite right. And then I got into it, and I was like trying to debunk all these myths, and then eventually this girl, and you could probably guess which one I'm talking about, she just turns around and she just goes, well, I just hate poor people, and she like looks directly at me, and I'm like,
oh my god, it's so disgusting. Like, honestly, it's just so, like, we can laugh about it now, but like, it's like, what the fuck? Like, how can you be so comfortable with saying things like that?
Well, it's because they didn't even understand it. Well, I don't even know until because these are children. They've just picked up the slightly bastardized views of like their parents, like
exactly.
Politics. But I guess this is.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you just remind me of something. You said something really like significant to me the last time we had a chat. You were talking about new wealth, and you were talking about this idea of having smaller, like our school was like a small school, but it was also a new school. So it had, you said something about it. I'm trying to remember.
So, okay, so, you know, it gets people a bit confused, the idea of like public schools. In America, that means state schools, but in the UK, that means private schools. And it's these ancient schools like Eton, Harrow, the ones that you've heard of and that princes and prime ministers went to. And they kind of have been around forever, and they're sent to by people who have always been wealthy. But these institutions were also founded as like public institutions. They're like charities. And so they've got this kind of grounding in like public service, for better or worse, because that means we get fucking prime ministers like David Cameron and Boris Johnson, so they're not really doing a public service, but at least they have this idea that they are. But with schools where, like our school, I got the impression, this isn't based on that much fact, but like that you've got these people who are self-made because you can't really be self-made wealth.
No, but to a degree, because it's like people who like, well, what they did to gain their wealth was happen very quickly and very fortunately, you know, like especially the fact that we live so close to London. You got people that are like property, like it doesn't matter if you're in trade or if you're in like if you were even like doing politics, like it was like there was this sort of accessibility for quick advancement, especially as London grew. So I think like that obviously sort of trickled down to the people around us and therefore the money around us.
Yeah. So I like what my impression of it is they don't have this sense of like almost luck. Like people, they kind of think that or at least the parents think, I've worked this hard, that's why I've got this far. I have this money now. I can, I deserve things. And so education isn't kind of like a sacred institution. It's something that you're paying for, so you need to get those results. And the kids had that too. You know, we I don't know if you remember, we had to do a thing called like lunch clearing once a term, where you helped like clear up trays and stuff for the kitchen, and it was supposed to be like, here, do some good for other people. And these kids would like get their parents to email in saying like, we pay £30,000 a year, so we don't have to let our children do the chores and shit. And it was like, it's literally just about character building. Do you want your children to have a good character? No? Okay. But yeah, you just get that.
I'm sorry. As you're speaking, I've just got a flashback of like floods of memories coming back to me, and seeing people kick off and then tell them off, and then be like, "Well, I'm just gonna tell my parents about it." And like,
yeah, I mean, it was like that. I saw it so much worse when I worked there. There was this one time when I was invigilating for exams.
Okay.
But I was doing the mocks because I was kind of in training, and obviously when you're doing mocks as a kid, that's kind of your training for your exams. But this girl had to have a scribe, so she turned up 10 minutes late, and then we didn't know which room we were supposed to be going to, so we were a little bit like draggled, and I didn't have there wasn't a watch or a clock in the room, so I had to use my phone. Anyway, I come down the next day, like ready to go to my work again, and they're like, oh yeah, no, you can't do that, because this girl's had complained to her mum that I had like been incredibly rude to her when I told her off for being late, and that I'd been on my phone during her exam. And she was like, yes, she shouldn't be working with like these children doing this. And I was like, fuck, 'cause you were late and I was doing you a favour. And it was so intense. No, it was so intense when I was like 18, because I never got told off before. And there's this woman like putting the whole might of her fee-paying power behind like trying to get me into trouble.
Yeah, no, it's a different form of intimidation. Like, I'm like one of those people that my mum was like, Sarah, if people give you nonsense, you give them nonsense. Like, you stand your ground, innit? And like, I remember this one time, this teacher came up to me and they were being very no, was it a teacher or was it a parent? Ooh, I can't remember. I can't remember. The teacher or the parent was trying to give me nonsense, but you have to sort of move with a different form of maturity because they're treating you with an adult. It's really it's actually really disgusting, because it's like, you're younger than them. They see that you're young, so they can use their intimidation of size as well as wealth behind them to hinder you or to make you smaller. However, if your character isn't like theirs before, oh my God, do you know what? Actually, I remember exactly what it was. It wasn't a teacher, and it wasn't a parent. It was a sixth former, and honestly, it was shocking at her reaction. I remember me and my I think you were even there, me and my classmates were in one of the IT rooms working along, and working, we were just I think I was the only one working. All of you guys were all chatting like around me, and there was a sixth former also doing her work, and she goes, can you guys all be quiet and like try and like make everyone like silence? But it was lunch break, people were like talking, but like only little conversation, like it wasn't intimidating at all. People love to say intimidating, but it's like, no, you're intimidated, just remember that. Like, I'm sorry that you don't have this character, like. And I remember standing there and everybody getting all like, oh no, we should go. I was like, no, like, we're not going to be bullied or intimidated out by a sixth former. And I said that very clearly and very forwardly. Now, this woman has now run and cried to the head of year and tried to get her parents involved because now I'm bullying. How am I bullying, Emily? Just because I want to do my work and eat my food whilst not being intimidated by someone who had who was bigger / had more money than me. Oh my god, that's what used to cringe me out so much. Remember the status between like you, if you were in third year, or if you were in second year, or if you were like a sixth former. I was like, fuck your sixth formers, they're all dickheads.
Yeah.
Until I got to a sixth former, and then I was like so happy that I could push past in the lunch queue. I'm not gonna lie, that was the best thing about being a sixth former in that school. That's when I want status.
But this is I mean, I guess there's a level of it in all schools, but especially in private schools, it's just about like institutionalizing and making so obvious and so important like hierarchy and difference and people being better. Like both you're instilled in that just by the fact that you pay for school and you have all this stuff and you're basically like, oh yeah, you're already kind of on top of the world. But then, yeah, you've got to defer, you've got to kind of show respect to your elders, you've got to, even if they're being arseholes to you, you know,
my god,
you have to you know, you've got all these kind of like prefects and things, and holding the door open. Do you remember the kind of like, if you were younger, you had to hold the door open for even if you know, you're in a rush or something.
Like, that was honestly, those moments were so funny. Those moments were so funny because like bearing in mind, like this is the first time that I've ever been into this kind of style of like, I don't know, life in the world. This is the first time that I'm here, and it was me and two other black people had joined our years. So it's like they had no black people and then they had 3 black people. And you'd walk through the halls and then you'd have these second years or year 7s just literally open doors for you. And it would just be like so weird because it's like, I've just experienced racism from this dickhead of a teacher. And now I've got a child opening a door for me. Like, what is this? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it here.
Yeah, it's they got their priorities a bit wrong.
Yeah, they got their priorities very fucked up. Like, how is it that my age intimidates you, but my race, my age and my race aren't intimidating? You are intimidated, and that is something that you have to work on. I say this because, not you specifically, but like I say that. Can you imagine? Like, I say this because I think that's another problem that I have with this old guys club, this white boys club, this idea of this. I guess what I'm specifically talking about is this overrepresentation of white males in academia, let's say, right? Or like in certain areas of life. But right today we're talking about education. So you'll have like a white male teacher who realistically has not met that many black people before, right? Or if he has, he's probably met 8. Or like under 10, or like, do you know what I mean? A very, very, very low number. Like, think about if he's living in the middle of nowhere, he might have only met 2. Do you know what I mean? And then coming to a school where now you have 3, it like to them. Wait, I'm going off topic. Let me not. Anyway, so with this old white man's club, or the problem with the elephant in the room, aka the white man in the room, is the fact that you've got these white men who are, yes, educated, but they haven't met many black people before, maybe many brown people before, or they've only met them in certain narratives, whether it's the angry black woman or whether it's the tropes that they are already racist old age tropes of mischievous or criminal activity or like all of that kind of bullshit. You have not been taught cultural competence. You haven't engaged with black or brown people. You haven't engaged with people that aren't like you. So then you create fear and a dialogue around your narrative. Now you've come into school, right? You're a teacher and there is a black child in your classroom. Because the black child is not responding. No, the black child is there anyway. That's number one. So you're immediately alert because you're like, oh, there's a black person in my room and you haven't met black people before. So you're on edge there. And then if a black person does something that satisfies your opinion or sort of confirms your belief of their character, then it confirms if a black person then acts in a way that you think that's true, then your opinion is satisfied and therefore you act in a very racist and active way. And people don't realise that this is really, really problematic because right, I will be the eighth or third or second black person that this white man has met, but this is the 100th, 200th, 800th experience that I've had with this group of people, and it fucks with your head because, like, even earlier we were talking about, before the episode, we were talking about, are you nervous about this, or like what are you thinking of about, and it's crazy how so many of experiences of just fucking irritating white men screaming in my face has followed me into this day, and that is quite a personal thing, but like, this is my wellness podcast, I don't give a fuck. Give me my Patreon money and get me onto the awards, you know what I mean? And rate me on Apple Podcasts, because I've been asking you for weeks. But it's frustrating because I see like how so much of that has influenced how I process authority now, right? That's one thing I say, but also and how much I well, I think it's just made me learn a lot about having to navigate yourself around someone else's feelings. And it's so annoying because you're having to learn that at such a young age when you should be looking after your own feelings. Like, at the end of the day, like, oh, they're older than you. They're caregivers. Well, not complete caregivers, but they have to provide some form of care. So you shouldn't have to be worrying about your feelings more so than navigating their well-being, because that's something that I just want to say on the whole sort of teacher note, because that is one problematic thing that I recognise in St George's. Fucking the racist teachers, fucking hell, the racist teachers were awful. They were just as bad as the pupils. They didn't integrate, or they didn't socialise with black or brown people, so they used black and brown people in school as opportunities to socialise with them by asking really inappropriate questions, by making others feel uncomfortable, by doing like rolling. There were so many non-verbal and verbal cues to racism in that school. It was disgusting. It was fucking terrifying. Like,
I think I have to admit, obviously, that I didn't see it as much as possibly I should have. You know, I saw moments where the students were racist towards, you know, anyone who wasn't white and from Surrey.
Yeah, no, literally, it was like, it doesn't matter who it was like they were just being racist. It was just their conversation.
But like, you know, I saw. Do you remember that teacher who like tried to get you into trouble when we went to Berlin?
Oh my god, Miss fucking dickhead.
and you know, and I did appreciate. I think what I put it down to, I'll admit, at a time before, was that probably more about like class, because these teachers are just used to teaching one type of student, and they've elected to put themselves, or they've applied and got successful to put themselves into these elite spaces where they won't have to interact with any kind of difference. And so I was just like, this is going to sound so stupid. It's going to sound like, oh yeah, I don't see colour, but I don't see race. But it's like, I just went, oh, well, Sarah's different. You know, she came from a state school. She's doesn't sound exactly like everyone else. I kind of didn't see that was racially motivated until now, when I'm kind of realising, no, obviously it was. Obviously it's that it wasn't just that they hadn't engaged with like someone who wasn't from school, it's that they hadn't. It was also race. Like a racially like motivated form of aggression. But I mean, it's horrible because it is traumatizing, and it affects you. Like, how, you know, you do psychology. It's how you are treated as a child has effects for your whole fucking life, and that's why it's so unfair.
It's unfair, but it's also like, I think when we look at education and we look at like people in general, people like teachers aren't being, unless they're actively looking after their own mental health, they're just people. Do you know what I mean? They're just their inner children needs to be looked after. Like, I know for a fact the teachers that are more intimidated and scared of a 14-year-old, 15-year-old black girl, they have definitely got problems at home. If you're scared of me being present, how ill are you? And you not even ill, actually, let me not conflate this with sickness, because it's a choice to be racist, but how disturbed must you be if you are comfortable doing that to someone
Yeah.
and then so openly. Like, no racist is never just racist. They're fucked. They need to nurture themselves and look within to understand why they are problematic.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence. It's like, because if you can understand, if I gave you two texts right now and they are just they're just written text from two characters, and you are able to provide empathy for someone, that's present. However, now when their text are now characters in a movie, but it's the same plot line, everybody wants to be against the black one instead of the white one because of empathy. Like, we have to call our demons what they are. And I think that's why I come with a bit of different vim, because, like, I feel like with teachers adults, we have to be, they're adults. Like, it's like me saying that because I don't actually know what example I could even compare it to, because I think it's like after a certain age, whether that be 16 or 17, after you have some form of awareness that it's a responsibility to choose myself and choose what I interact with and choose my adulting and how my life is going to direct. All of that is a choice. You chose to be a teacher. You chose to see differently. Like, we can lie to ourselves as much as how bias influences situations, and that is true. I'm more than happy to go through studies with that. However, it also stalls, because there are some teachers that are able to interact, problem solve, and help whoever's in front of them succeed, because they see them as opportunities and potential instead of figures that are destructive or aggressive, or, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we can't, like, yeah, I just think it's all relatable.
Yeah. I also think on that, like, even it's also the spaces in which these people are operating, they're not being challenged because there's not enough difference, and because, you know, because they're not being challenged, because they're not thinking in a way that or they're not being presented with ideas or people enough, more than, you know, the 3 black people they might interact with in a year, that you know, that challenge their point of view. And other people, I think we had this over summer where one of our old teachers was trying to defend her own actions. Like, you know, she wasn't the one who was screaming at you, and it's like, okay, fine, maybe you weren't I don't know, screaming at the only black person in the room, but what were you doing about when you heard it or you saw it in the hallway?
Exactly.
Or like, and how were you teaching about how you know, unconscious bias works? Or, you know, she was a French teacher. What were you teaching about institutional and structural racism in the country you're from? Or since we're learning about French culture anyway, why don't you talk about that quite important element? But it's not it's in these schools that's almost mandated against, you know, because these schools exist, private schools exist to kind of like elevate the status quo, and so it's just not it's in no one's interest except for, you know, you and you can't do anything about it to change how these places are run.
I think that's, like everything what you just said, it's so right, because it's like, regardless of, I think this is the problem of seeing things as isolated incidents. Like, even this teacher, right? Even, let's say a teacher saw another teacher being racist to me, that's an isolated incident for them, but that's the 3rd teacher that week for me, you know? Or if this is why we can't even give it isolation, even that language, because it's like, it's a collective issue. One thing that you made me think about over our conversation in summer is this idea of pastoral versus educational care. And if you Oh yeah, let me give you some language for that if you don't know what that is. So basically, I was a boarding school. I was at boarding school, but I also was an overseas boarder, and that means that my family were living overseas, and I was staying there longer term. So let's say my friends who travelled from different parts of Africa, they were overseas boarders because their parents came from there, right? However, I also have a house in the south, so I was going back and forth, like from boarding school and that. But you made me think about how pastoral and educational care differ because, like, at the end of the day, I'm was brought up in this country, and I also have this accent. I have an accent that is more familiar to you, so therefore I am more relatable to you. However, if you compare that to the girls who, let's say, flew from different parts of Africa, because in, like, let's say sixth form, because I think in sixth form there was like 7 of us or like 8 of us then, and I remember seeing the differences of how certain pastoral staff, so people who'd look after the boarders and look after dinners and like just all of that, like the background stuff with private school and stuff, how they would now integrate with the new black people that I had followed, because they were less westernized than I had been. And I find that really, really like significant, how depending on how you are and even how you present yourself is also going to influence the racism you're going to get.
Yeah, so I think in boarding, there was that slightly different thing about, you're trying to create like a community. So there's this idea of like, everyone's got to get along, you've got to all be... and some of these girls came, especially girls who were sent from China when they were really young by their parents. Yeah. They came with like such like low, some of them, not all of them, like low capacity for English. So they were learning the whole time, but there was this idea of like assimilation is key, assimilation to what they want the boarding community to look like, which is like the jolly old boarding schools of the 1950s or whatever. Bruv. And I think that that's where the kind of, when you were less westernized, or you had less, you wanted to eat different food, or you wanted to talk in your own language in your living space, because you're a boarding school, so you live there, and they were like, no. And that's why I think teachers, or not the teachers, the boarding staff possibly were, did problematic behaviour in a different way from the teaching staff, because instead of trying to make you assimilate or kind of be disciplined to the way they want the classroom to be, it was like they were trying to assimilate you kind of culturally to what they wanted the boarding community to be.
Exactly. I think you got the nail on the head there. It's crazy. What things did you see when you were in pastoral care? Not like as in, what did you learn from pastoral care? That's my question.
Well, I don't want to be a fucking teacher. I don't want to work with kids. It was really hard because, for me, I think I was too young to do it. I really shouldn't have been there doing that job. And so I found it really challenging meeting these girls who, as like that attitude that we were talking about earlier, where they just think that they deserve everything and they treat you like shit. And I wasn't an adult enough to like take it. Yeah. So it was really hard. Like these girls who had everything just like beating you down. It was so mean. But then I'm saying that that was very unique, because obviously most teachers, the power imbalance is the other way. Oh God, I was gonna say something that actually made more sense.
Don't you worry, take your time. That's what a podcast for. Hey.
So there was also, for me, going on to the other side, seeing kind of attitudes in the staff room, and really like seeing that teachers are people thing. So
exactly.
At one point,
teachers are people. That's literally what I learned in my first fucking, when I went to school. Teachers are fucking people. They're problematic.
It took me a longer time to realise that. But like, I went there to be a resident tutor, so that's like looking after boarding and maybe doing some fun activities during the daytime. But at the same time, they realised that they needed a TA, a one-to-one teaching assistant for this girl. They didn't have anyone to do it, so I got to do it. They also needed a receptionist for the evenings before dinner, so I got to do that. They didn't have anyone to do, like, invigilating exams, so I got to do that. So at one point, I was working 17 hours a day, and I was basically, although I was on a salary, it kind of worked out to about £3 an hour or something.
That's disgusting. That is disgusting because of how much money that fucking school takes. That's vile.
Yeah, exactly. But it was kind of made me realise, like, and I could see teachers who I had before, like, idolised or just appreciated or wanted to please were kind of overlooking it, or in some cases, you know, they'd see me sitting like a shell of a woman in the staff room with like a cup of tea, having like a 2-minute break in between my 12 jobs, whatever, and they'd be like, "Oh, can you just photocopy this for me?" Knowing that obviously I have that like yeah, exactly. And I was still not assertive enough to say no, because obviously these are the people who I've worked for the last 7 years, so like please. So I was like, yes, I can do that. And just it's not just the students is what I learned. It's the staff too. So like problematic. I think also kind of going more relevant to our conversation. You know, I saw attitudes towards some of the overseas boarders that were like, yeah, about the need to assimilate, not trying to get on these children's level of like, you know, they wanted to eat their food and talk to their friends in their own language because they were homesick and just felt like shit. And it was like, no, that was like a discipline issue.
That's awful. Like, I can't actually, like, it's just crazy because, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
no.
Well, you're just saying these things and it's just like all these memories, all those feelings are coming back. Just seeing like conversations, people being upset because they couldn't speak to other people. And it's like, because, well, for safety and for mental health, I've sort of blocked off so much. So it's like this slow release of like, what the fuck? Crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, I genuinely don't think boarding school is a good, healthy choice for anyone. You know, that's why we've got such fucking repressed, like, emotionally stunted, people running our countries, because they all got sent off to boarding school and felt like their parents didn't love them, so have to take it out on other people.
I mean, that's one way of describing
that's
them.
One way but I think
true.
it's not good. It's not good for your emotional or like development to be away from home, like when you're that young. That's my feeling, and I feel like you see it, but especially when these schools aren't run by like angels. They're run by people who bring their own prejudice. You're
completely right. I think the only what I say opposing to that is just literally different experience. Like, I know, so I was going to boarding school whilst my little brother was going to boarding school, right? My little brother started in year 7, I started in year 10. He went to like a sports and rugby school. Mm-hmm. So he was loving it. He was having so much fun. Obviously, like, he would tell me about his own experiences, X, Y, and Z. However, he was introduced into a format where everyone was new, right? So that sort of took the load off. I think, well, I don't want to make it gendered either, but, like, I think being in a private girls' school obviously influenced the experience that we were going to have. But I mean, obviously abolish private schools. I think that's the main point of this whole episode. But I do think everyone's experiences are different. I think if you have, do you know who Keir Thompson is? Did I say that right?
No.
So I've been learning about right, today, and there's this guy, and he basically said how schools are killing our creativity, and he was saying how our education system is based on it was taken from the Victorian period and the Industrial Revolution, so it's basically a memory test to sort of help capital and whatnot. And they were just talking about how creativity needs to be used as a tool that's enhanced over the years, more so than more so than something that can only be used in certain settings or dim down when it's not reaping the best results. And I think if there was more, I want to change the education system in general. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to do it, because teachers are doing God's work, because there's so much that needs to, that's so much necessary for the next generation. However, because teachers are fucking people, they aren't able to help the next generation, either because of their own personal issues or because of the lack of bloody resources. Like, either way, they're hurt.
Yeah, I mean, so my friend is trained to be a teacher, but he's also doing like a kind of like a radical education element to his kind of masters.
Ooh.
And he kind of, it's really cool. It's a cool sounding thing, but he's basically just pointed out that like teachers are necessarily political. They're kind of like the propaganda arm of the state, because they're teaching kids what the government thinks they need to be, and they're kind of mediating that message. But teachers don't realise how political they are, and how political they could be, and how much of it, how much like they could change things if they had a slightly less kind of numbers focused, and like just got to get through the day and get these kids these grades, and more like, yeah, I could be building, I could be building the children of the revolution or something. But yeah, it's really hard to imagine how these things will change. But I think especially with private schools, like, you've gone into that because you're like, yeah, I'm not going to change a kid's life and set them on a better path, or, maybe inspire them. It's like, all right, I'm gonna get paid more money, and yeah, have that slightly closer connection to kids who will be in power one day. That's what I always think about. I've just remembered the other element of me and my connection to privilege or like private schools is that I lived in fucking Eton College for 10 years as well, because my stepdad worked there, and that gives you I'm not saying that what I said earlier about kids. I don't think all kids had like a traumatic time at private school, or at boarding school, but it doesn't feel like a natural way to grow up. And these in Eton especially, like you can see like the classism that my stepdad, who's a cook, who was kind of subjected to by children, because they're in this little hotbed of like, and they're told by everything, because it's Eton, and that's the school that people go to, that they are better than other people, and like whether they recognise it or not, that messes you up.
It does. It really, really does. Wow, that was literally like such a mic drop moment, Emily. But you're right, like, God, I can't even imagine growing up on Eton. Like, how was that?
Awful.
What around it, I guess.
No, because I was in a boarding house. Like, I was at the end of a corridor. But quite specific to me and my family. We were kind of in a kind of liminal space where we were kind of not really supposed to be there, but it was fine. Like, we were taking up a little bit, with too many bedrooms for the amount that Phil was actually, my stepdad was entitled to. But like, but my mum being the kind of
England. Do you know what I mean?
My mum being the kind of melodramatic lady that she is, she basically told us from the age of like 8, yeah, if you do anything, we'll get kicked out. We'll live on the streets. So consequently, throughout the whole 10 years I lived there, through being like the same age as these boys or something, I was terrified of them. I didn't have any conversations with them. They were like the other, and I was just so frightened of them. And they, I imagine they saw us a bit like, what the fuck are you doing? But
oh, bless
so the
little
only
Emily, just being like, oh, don't look at me. Bless
the only interactions that I had with these boys was mediated through whatever interaction they had with my stepdad.
Yeah.
And that was, I can remember we went to...
Do you remember when we used to do socials with Eton? You did have interactions.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Oh
that
my
was
God.
Horrible.
Oh my God, this is hot intake for you fucking podcast people. I was just like, whoa. Do you remember when we had to do, right, fucking like school discos with Eton College, right? How have I forgot about this memory? Oh my fucking god!
Deep down.
Oh my god, it's so fucking deep. And I remember we were in the fucking drama studio at the bottom of the our school was so bougie. It was like a drama studio, and then it was like this fucking landscape thing that you have to like go into. And I remember there was this guy there, and they were all wearing like snackbacks, and they were like talking like this, and like yeah. And I was just like, what are you doing? I was like, ew. What are you doing? And then one of them started on me, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I just stepped to them because like I just thought it was funny, and you should have seen the look on this man's face. He was like, oh, relax. I was like, raw, we're 12. No, how old were we? Not 12, because I wasn't in that school when we were 12. So we were 14, 15. Right, this little rich white boy just fucking stepped to me, so I went like boo, and he literally ran. Oh my god, that's so funny. Oh my god.
I mean, it's so weird because I remember that night so differently, where I basically didn't talk to any of them, and then I got home, and two of my friends were there, and they wouldn't go upstairs. They wouldn't go into my house. They were just standing around where the boys would be, and the housemaster eventually came down. And this is a guy I lived in the same building with him for 10 years, and he never spoke to us, except he was like, get out, what do you think you're doing? And I think this really defines like where you kind of came across this, and you were like, no, shut up. You know,
do you know what I mean? Go fuck yourself.
Whereas I was just like, I just was so frightened all the time of like the ramifications of like pissing people off.
See, that's when I was different to like I guess the most of the people in my school. Like I just was like, I had enough. Like I'm already here. Exactly. It can't get any more worse. I might as well fucking rustle a few feathers. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, go fuck yourself. Like I just remember, it's just so funny because I'm like here with a wellbeing podcast, and I have definitely grown. Like I'm not this. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the same person that I once was. No. But I just think about at my younger me and how I wouldn't even let people talk. I would just scream until they left. I was talking about this in therapy, and they were like, yeah, but you did it because it was you were standing up for yourself. No. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I was doing it because I was standing up for myself, but also it's something that I had to exercise because I was forced to. Like it wasn't like I was fucking, well, I don't think anybody in this world fucking chooses to move mad, but it's the fact of something being pressed in you all the time, being like, oh, get this reaction out of you, like whether it was a teacher poking it, whether it was an Eton boy poking it, when it was one of those bloody girls poking it, it was this prejudice being fucking exciting a reaction. So I was just like, I didn't nobody in my eyes, there was no difference. Everybody was the same. It was just like, everyone shut up until I like just get away. Like, do you know what I mean? Fucking crazy. Oh,
it's yeah, and that's what was different about it. And it's amazing, I think I was saying this before, like that you've been able to kind of keep it together because you had to because you had to face that for such a long time.
Where were we at? What we were just talking about?
We were talking about Eton and
I mean, it's not that. Anyway, well, we've got more things to talk about. It's A-okay. So, my next thing that I wanted to actually talk to you about is well, we've talked about problems at private school, right? We talked about some personal accounts as well. But when I was talking to you about that guy earlier with the education is ruining our creativity video that's on Netflix, I also came across this other video called 6 Problems with Our School System, and it basically suggests that it's an outdated and ineffective way to teach our modern world, so we need to change our system of education, right? How the impracticality of doing that, I'm not too sure, but it's definitely favoured. I was reflecting on our instances of learning. I was reflecting on when power was good, and I've mentioned Mr. Sharkey a few times already in this episode. But I rate him so much as a teacher because he was so enthusiastic, but he was also so engaging. Like he literally, like I remember it right now. Like I was on an L table. I was always on the bottom of the L. It was you, and then I nearly said their names. It was us, two other people that we knew, and then two other people that we knew. But because it was an L square, our history teacher would just walk around and he would show us different things, and he would literally jump and move across the room. But he would also push you and push you and push you till you understood where he was coming from, but in a way that made you think for yourself. Like he never let you scapegoat. Do you know what I mean? Like he never let you just sort of float. He was like, go on, what do you think this means? And like this teacher, he was a white man that went to a very racist, no, that was at a racist school, and he still saw me as an individual. So this is why I'm also so aggressive in my approach for equality, because I went to the same school with one teacher like who'd scream, and then one teacher like Mr. Sharkey who wouldn't. So I'm engaging with people that are in the same, who literally are from the same, let's say, group that may find me, that may show racism towards me. However, one of them is literally making me into an A-star student.
Yeah. And
one of them is making me into an A-star student. What the other one is harming my well-being. Like, why isn't what the person who's helping me become an A-star student being exercised more? Why isn't his stance in education being used in different classrooms? Because that's where you saw, like, I don't know, just amplification. Like when you saw growth.
Yeah.
I think.
So, because what you were saying earlier about like, you know, these teachers who haven't come across difference, who haven't met people of different races or even classes or life experiences, and so when they do come across that, they act defensively or they depend on the stereotypes and the tropes that they know. Whereas I think if we're going with the kind of Mr. Sharkey as like an individual, but also as like a bigger example, he had more life experiences. That's, you know, he's like working class and old, but also he was a history teacher and he taught us, and it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't staid, boring like Royals history.
The audio's just gone.
Oh,
I can hear you. I don't know what happened to my phone. It just wasn't working.
Is it working now?
It's working absolutely fine. Thank you so much.
What was it?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Remember your point, remember in your head. How long have we been on recording for?
1 hour 38.
38. So I should, okay, so I need to, I'm just trying to think.
Should I turn my camera?
Maybe have a chat a little bit more about how you want to change things. Then sort of go on that conversation for 10 more minutes.
Okay, sick. I just wanted to double check. Okay, cool. Amazing. Sorry, Emily, go on.
Yeah, what was I saying? So Mr. Sharkey as a person, he had actually interacted with people who weren't all like identicals,
people. Yeah.
Yeah, but also he taught history, and he kind of expanded his worldview by, you know, delving into structural problems, because he taught us what civil rights history, and you know that's in although, you know, it could have been colonial history. I don't even know if the curriculum allows for that, but it was like, you know, that's as close as you're going to get to someone actually engaging with the problems, which would help them see, them see you, you know, would help them go like face up to like their own inherent bias and the inherent bias of like the way that they were being told to teach and treat people, you know.
He definitely made you like just compare and contrast all the time. I think that is literally him. But like, I remember when we weren't even learning about civil rights, we were just learning about super like abstract like concepts. Like I remember for sixth form, weren't we learning about the Salem witch trials in Massachusetts? Like, who else is doing that? Honestly, that's so cool.
But that has such like similar ramifications, you know. That's why it's an analogy for like the communist witch hunt in the 50s, because it's about going, look, here was this instance in history where people decided that they didn't like a group of people, so vilified them and tried to, you know, destroy them. And so he's seen that. And I think, obviously, not everyone can be history teachers, but it's the importance, especially of everyone, but especially people who are teachers, continuing to learn and challenge themselves. And you know, that kind of naturally comes with learning a discipline like history or like a humanities, but you know, you can do it in your life if you want to.
Well, I think,
you know,
I think it's like
those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it.
Those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. Do you hear that? That's an exclusive from Josh.
Yes, and those who study history are doomed to hear that saying over and over again.
It's a great saying. I'm learning a lot about karmic cycles recently, and I'm learning a lot about sort of respectability, but in a way that's how I want to hold myself as I move more into the world. I think when we looked at power versus prejudice in relation to education, there's a lack of funding, number one. There's also lack of resources. There's also a lack of cultural competence. There's so many things that are embedded within the people or within the system that sort of hinder the progress to which education can make. However, if we don't have hope, what else do we have? And that's why these conversations are so necessary. Like, I think one thing that I really took from this, or even taken from boarding school, private school education, was this innate sort of thirst. Because I was in an environment where everything was there, it was on me to do the work. It taught me about sort of productivity in a way that's a lot more time managed. Even though school is like, you have to do this every day and you have to do this every day, it was like to the minute from fucking prep to like everything. It was still very, I was still very independent in myself, because I mean, I was intimidated of sort of the encounters that I was going to get with daily, but I didn't want this opportunity to go to waste. Do you know what I mean? I was like, might as well, here, let me go full at it. So the fact that, like, I remember even seeing my friends before I went to private school and after I went to private school, and they were like, Sarah, you're a different person. Like, the way that you have learned to work and the way that you sort of push yourself is different. Like, it's so different, because I think before I was I just thought school was school. Like, I didn't really think of it as anything, but then I went to boarding school and I was like, oh, school can get you where? Like, and then I found out about what interests that I liked, and then with the sort of power of critical thinking, we got here.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I mean, I think about it all the time, and I always have, because people were like, you're so lucky to be here. And I was like, yeah, I know. But they were like, no, you're so lucky to be here. But, you know, eventually I got over being annoyed that people who, you know, were there but just had a little bit more money than me were telling me this. And I was like, yeah, I actually am so lucky to be here, because it is. It's just, it is so important. Yeah.
It's weird saying that, because it's like, how is it that I'm like, because that person's saying it and it's coming from their voice, I'm annoyed at it, but it is true. Do you know what I mean? It's like, let's use this opportunity and speak gratitude on it. I don't want this, but however, that's going to be conflicting if those words said are being, said by someone who's been gifted.
Well, yeah, I mean, the reason that it wasn't because I was like, didn't appreciate that opportunity. It was the fact that these girls didn't realise the privilege and the luck that they had had.
Yeah.
Like, I remember very clearly, because I remember my whole body getting hot from the anger of it. When I became deputy head girl. Yeah. And no, don't clap too much. Don't clap too much, because it was terrible. But also, someone told me that this girl who didn't get a prefect's position, she had said, "Oh, well, it's just so unfair. Emily always gets given everything." And I was like, I heard that, and I was like, you know, like stony faced, because everyone in that school had been given everything.
Yeah.
Like, they had been given everything they could possibly be given. And also, it turns out, I didn't get head girl. I only got deputy head girl because we didn't pay fees, so they couldn't give it to me. That's what I found out later.
God, welcome to boarding school, eh? Welcome to private
So,
school
yeah,
problems.
but I wasn't rich enough.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's private school problems.
That's so
definitely.
gross.
But yeah, no.
You're the best deputy head girl that they ever didn't see. Don't you worry about that, Emily.
But
Best-
yeah, no. God, I don't want to. I
Pardon?
don't think that that's something that I like hold on to. But it was that, the reason that I found it hard to hear that I was lucky from people who was even luckier than me, and they didn't seem to notice it.
But yeah, I think that's also a people thing, isn't it? It's like when we okay, so we're in a different margin towards these people, but they're comparing their pain in a different, like, our pains are different metrics, right? So like it's more hurtful, or it's more like I guess it's more hurtful coming from an individual who doesn't actually understand the range of the metric that's awarded to them compared to the metric that we have, because that's it within the other day. Oh, yeah. It's crazy. I'm trying to think if I had any more questions for you in Decoding the Messes. Is there anything else that you wanted to say on this is what this whole episode's about, lol. Why do you think we should abolish private schools?
I think well, if education is like a human right, then why should some people have some people be automatically afforded like a better version of it?
Yeah.
Because when you've got a better version, there must necessarily be a worse version. Like, I think this all started because, like, you shared that Ash Sarkar tweet, which was like, if private school didn't confer like unfair privilege, then why the fuck would anyone pay for it?
No, but it's completely true. Like, I've been learning so much about sort of how, what I was saying before about how schooling system was based on the industrial age in the Victorian area that's helping with reach capital society, or like sort of the industrial revolution, or helping sort of advocate for those, for that. It's like, if we know this, and there are people in schools that have, I saw a thing earlier, someone has like 27 textbooks for 87 students, or like something's ridiculous like that. It baffles me how private schools are able to keep their money from their charitable status. They are able to not pay a VAT. They are able to, there's so many loopholes in the system that allow private schools to function, and then when they are provided alternatives, they don't even allow them. So like, let's say there's a bursary scheme, they only do 1% at 100% for the bursary, and all this bullshit. And it's just like, if boarding schools, private schools, fee-paying schools in general were taken off their status, their money was distributed in a resourceful and proactive manner, everyone would benefit. Everyone. Yeah. But because there's like, even to do with space, just imagine if every private school that was in the world, right? No, not in the world, in the UK, was now made into an accessibilities learning centre. Just imagine that. It would literally be like taking away private schools in general would benefit so many other, or provide so many solutions to other problems, or other spaces where people living on the margins are affected. And that's another reason why I'm like, abolish private schools.
I think also, just adding to that, because of what we've been saying from the beginning, is so you start school in a prep school, and then you go to a private school, and then you go to Russell Group University, but you don't interact with, maybe the working class people, or even just the state educated people who went there. You just stay, and then you go on to these careers, whatever they may be, in like the top echelon, and you're not at any point disrupting the continuity of sameness. The same people, the same type of people, the same life experience, and you're not being challenged at any point, and that's why, you know, it reinstates prejudices because it's never been challenged.
Exactly.
And also, you know, it means that people like, not every fucking person who runs this country it, you know, has the qualifications or just the qualities that they need, but they have the connections and the like social and economic capital that got them there because of their parents, and that's not fair. And it means that, you know, everything gets a bit worse because we've got incompetent rich people running things instead of people who actually deserve it.
No, you're right. Honestly, that was brilliant. And I think on that note, we'll end DM talks. No, sorry.
No, decoding the messes.
Sorry, I'm going to edit that bit. You know what, Emily, that was amazing. And on that note, we're going to end Decoding the Messes. Beautiful. Have you ever had a tarot reading before, Emily?
No.
Oh, well, this is fun. Okay, so I'm burning sage right now to burn all of the negative vibes and negative energies and aura spaces. When I spoke to you earlier, you said that you wanted to sort of use your... What? Let you say it. What did you want when we were talking about your tarot reading today?
Well, so I'm coming to the end of, you know, of counselling, and I've been doing it for 2 years, and I feel pretty good, but also like really nervous because it'll be the first time since I felt well and good and whole in myself that I've just been out there alone doing stuff, and you know, this isn't an easy time, so I just want to know, you know, whether like how I'll stay strong and like like have a sense of self-confidence and like self-support.
Yes, I love that for you. Okay, I'm just shuffling the cards. One's already came out, which is quite interesting because you're talking about how you've just finished therapy, how you're sort of completing a chapter, and we've got the 9th card that has come. Actually, you know what, I'll talk about it like this and I'll just talk about it as we go on. The 9th card is the Hermit, and the 9th card is the Hermit sort of a period coming out of isolation, and it's quite interesting because you see this figure sort of like move out the darkness and you see the lightness comes out of the shadows. So that means that you've got a new way of thinking after your period of contemplation. So I'm excited to see what's else for your reading. I'm going to ask Spirit. I'm going to ask Spirit for 2 more cards, or one for where I currently am, and the second one for advice. I think that would be really good as you sort of emerge into this new period of your life. You want to embrace all this self-positivity and self-assertion as well, you know? Ooh. I'm going to take that. Okay. Another card for advice. Ooh. God, Spirit wants to talk. Spirit wants to talk. Okay. Interesting. So you've got 3 cards, right? I'm gonna show them to you and then I'll probably like just put them on the camera. So the first card I showed you is the Hermit, and I'm just gonna give you some more detail about this card. This is a major arcana, so it's an overarching theme in your life. It's something that you're gonna come back to again, being the Hermit, coming out of being a hermit, going in to be a hermit. Like the Hermit stands for contemplation, reflection, solitude. It's sort of standing for this time where we go within for answers. There's not any space for ego here. It's dealing with your highest needs, but in a very sort of nurturing and decisive way, because the Hermit is very, I think they're clear and conscious, the Hermit card, but because it's number 9 as well and it's upside down, it kind of makes me look more at the light in this image, because like if you have a look, you see how it's like different shades of brown, and that's actually showing the light that's poking through from all the forest that's above. So that's positivity in its way. It's coming out of the darkness. It's kind of moving on or transitioning to a new period, which is great. And cool. I really like that card. I'm going to go to the next card. And the next card you have is the Six of Swords. And the Six of Swords is an individual who is in a boat with another individual. Or are they two? Yeah, no, two individuals. And they've got loads of swords in their boat and they're moving on to a different destination. But you can see here that the water's busier here than it is here, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So with the Six of Swords, it's all to do with your intelligence. It's all to do with your mental realm and how we use our thoughts, our opinions, our communication, our power to steer us in life. How everything in our mind is theory, right? But because you've got the Six of Swords, it talks about this transitional change. It's a transfer energy. It's like a moving energy, right? And this water is busier at the start than at the bottom because the card is reversed. This might suggest that you're still trying to find your flow, but you're coming into clearer waters. You're using your intellect to guide you on a journey. Well, you're on a journey. You've got your staff here, which is positive. You've actually got a staff in all the minor arcanas. So minor arcanas are like daily energies or daily like minor energies or sort of day-to-day things that we talk about. And because you've got a staff in both images, it's definitely a lesson in confidence. It's definitely a lesson in self-assurance. And that's even like powered by the advice. And when I say the advice, I'm talking about this guy. This is like motivational energy. This is bad energy, right? So, for the next card, which is the advice, which is King of Wands, you see a figure who is focused to their confidence. They're focused on what they're manifesting. They're focused on their motivation. There's black salamanders covered all over their gown and over their is that a throne? Yeah, it's a throne. Throne, and that is an animal significant for trial by error. So it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. The King of Wands is a master of their suit. They're a master of their expansion energy. This is very like fire, motivation, sort of like it's very mature. It's not like, oh, I want to take my fire and burn everywhere. It's like, I want to see my fire and I want it to ignite and I want to have a long lasting flame. You're at a period of your life where you're cultivating self-assurance, but also like passionate wisdom in a way of longevity. Because with all the wands suit, all the salamanders, they just want to be in their fire. But if you're reversed all the time, it's like, where's my fire? Where's my fire? Where's my fire? You might be moving sporadically to keep yourself lit. However, over time, as we grow up and as we mature, we understand that the light is within inside, and we want to do opportunities and do things that just help that energy, that uplift that energy, that help that vibration stay there. And I think that's why the middle card is reversed, because it's like, well, if we take this all in together, you've got the first card, which is like coming out of a period of isolation, but knowing that there's like sort of light on the way, being guided towards the light, but also like being guided to the light, but also like moving in a way that's like, well, forward thinking, but slow forward thinking. You're not rushing, you know, you're the hermit. Do you know what I mean? There's no rush in the hermit stage. Coming out of that period, and then your middle card is where you are currently, and that's like moving ahead, but also having some overcoming turbulent waters, like knowing there's hiccups on the road, but being very gentle as you use your confidence and your intellect as a guide to what's coming next, right? And then your advice as the King of Wands is sort of owning your truth and claiming your power of using that energy and that vibration, but cultivating it in something that is enriching, cultivating in something that is very passionate and takes your eyes away. Take your eyes away. I don't know why I said that, but like, it's like when I say take your eyes away, I mean like you're so captivated by it. The King of Wands is literally staring to their energy, to their vibration. If this is you, that means you have to use the confidence of the King of Wands to be proud of the manifestation, because it could be a project, it could be I don't know, self-worth, it could even be like traveling, anything to do with expansion. How can my idea inspire, create, manifest into something more? How can it produce more, you know? I think that's your reading. Ooh,
I mean, that's hopeful. Because it does feel like I'm going from one bit to another, and it's still so uncertain. And obviously, it's uncertain for everyone because we're in the pandemic and no one knows what like the world is going to look like. But it's nice. I have been feeling like, although very uncertain, like I have the tools.
Yes.
So
we love to see it. We love to see it. I just pulled you out a affirmation from the Say Your Mind affirmation deck, and it says, I give myself, or can you see it from here? I give myself permission to show up and show out. Sometimes the only person holding you back is you. Give yourself the permission to be your whole self and live your whole life. Isn't that fitting?
I will.
I love
saw
that.
something so similar this morning. How weird is that? It was like, I'm never gonna, what was it? I mean, it's a bit embarrassing because it was like a bake-off thing. It was, do you remember Dario? She was, it's at the end when she won and she was like, I'm never gonna I'm never gonna tell myself I can't do things again. I can and I will. And it's I'm just being, washed over with that message today, so hopefully I carry it with me,
Yes, please do, and let me know on your journey, because I think especially with having taken your power away so many times, not like specifically but like collectively, individually, whether it's motivated by teachers, whether it's motivated by I don't know, the fucking government. It could be anything at this point, like 2020. But when we've had our power taken away so much, it's really that within work. It's, you know what, this reading is for me too. Like it's really hitting home truth, because it's like the power is within, but also it needs to be cultivated upon a very strong foundation, because they're solid, they're affirmed, they're confident. That's why they have their staff. Do you know what I mean? It's like their intuition is guiding them. Is that your mind intuition? Is that your energy intuition? Like the hermit understands, but they also know when to retreat. So I feel like all of this is very like forward thinking, expansive energy that's sort of going to motivate us into a brighter day. Woo! How amazing. Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, hopeful.
It's hopeful. Oh, did you, I think that takes us to the last segment, Amazing. So that is the direct message. And the direct message is a little take-home message that you want to leave listeners with. So what would you like to leave listeners with this week?
I mean, the first one, abolish private schools, obviously. And capitalism, read some Marx, But no, I think I say this as if I read Marx all the time. But I think thinking about it this week, and just all the time is when you come across something like an experience or just information. Mm-hmm. You have two choices, you have two paths that you can go down, which is you contract and you act defensively and you can't take it in, like what some of those people who have acted so horrendously to you have done. Or you can stop and you get confronted by the thing that you haven't encountered and you don't understand, and you go, right, I might not understand it, but I'm still going to take it and I'm going to learn from it and go with it. And I will never know what it's like to walk in your shoes, both obviously in general and because of your experiences of
indirectly,
racism and stuff. But I'm not going to deny that that's happened to you. And I feel like that's such a simple thing, isn't it? But it's just do not when you feel yourself acting defensively, it means you're going down the wrong path, and you should just act, take it in and just learn from things instead of lashing out at them.
You're right.
Did that make sense?
That makes complete sense. Thank you for your direct message, Emily. It was a beautiful DM. It's a DM that I wish more people would hear. So hopefully this episode will blow up. My DM for this week, my direct message is: prejudice gets recycled in various places of power because no one has been challenged. Either be the challenge or be the change you want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, fucking yeah, exactly.
That's what I wrote earlier. It came to me, right? It came to me and I was like, I need to get this fucking down now. This is content.
Well, do you know what? Like, I think sometimes you are and sometimes you aren't, but it's to remind yourself to do it. Not you, but like...
No,
what?
but it's true because it's like during this time in June when everybody got excited over a black square, I had so many people from boarding school messaging me and being like, oh, I'm sorry this happened. Oh my God. And like, at the end of the day, I'm not going to fucking beat myself up or relive certain experiences to help other people understand. I'm only going to do things for me. If I help people learn, that's a fucking bonus. But what that moment taught me when people were messaging me, saying sorry, compensating, whatever, they couldn't have done much. Like, I hate that it happened to me, but I also don't think that... Okay, so let's say someone, they could have... I don't know, it's sticky, but like, yes, they could have helped, and I wish they did, because I would have had more faith in a system that didn't understand me, or I would have had more support in a system that didn't understand me. Regardless, I would have been better if people stood up for me. However, I also believe that they didn't really have much power. I feel like peers compared to teachers are different. I feel like if you're in a place of power, you have an opportunity of care. You have a responsibility of care because you choose to interact with these individuals. However, if you're a peer, what are you going to do? Like, I mean, Don't get me wrong, I wish someone did something, but was that you telling your parents? Was that I telling my parents? Was that you writing emails? Was that me writing petitions? Like, I don't know, like, I'm still young, so I'm still working this thing out, but I remember emailing so many times on responses. I remember writing complaints. I remember writing complaints in those schools when I was 14. I'm 23 now. Like, has much changed? No. You know, obviously I want people to fight, but I also want people to look after their well-being and mental health more. So I think if you see inequality, you fight against it, right? However, if you're a teacher, you best be checking yourself before you even step into those halls. Mm-hmm. You need to. That's the job you want to take. If you want to teach people, black and brown people are children too. So act accordingly. Cultural competence is a must. I just realised that's 2 DMs in one. Look at us, we got all the DMs. We got DMs. Amazing, Emily, you've been amazing.
It's just, I mean, we could talk about this forever. Because there's so much to unpack, and it's just, and there's so much to learn from it. And it's like, exactly. I think I had slightly more cultural competence and awareness than other people, but I also wasn't all the way there. I didn't realise that some of the behaviour that you experienced was racism until now, when I'm going like, oh, fuck, that's awful. But yeah, like, it's just, once you realise, then do something about it.
Exactly. And I think that's a must, because nobody's born conscientious. So we need to be proactive with guiding people on their way, or not even guiding people, because my mum always used to say to me, like, Sarah, everyone's learning the same thing Sarah, everyone's learning the same thing at different times. And I think to a degree that helped me sort of understand that people have their own shit, or people aren't gonna see me my entirety for a bit. But I mean, that I'm still young. That hasn't made me grateful, and that hasn't made me feel better yet. All I can do is cater for my well-being and for my inner child, you know? But yeah, this has been sick, and this has been great, Emily. I feel like I'm slyly like outlonging the outro because I've tried to say goodbye 3 times. But I don't care. You've been great. You've been amazing. Do you have any social media that you could plug into the podcast if people want to follow you? Don't worry if not.
No, I mean, not my personals, but I copy edit for this literature zine. It's called Wild Fell, like wild, and then fell like fall.
Sick.
And we're looking for submissions at the moment for a issue called Connections. So it's like if you want to write a review of pretty much anything or do a feature or something, then please follow it. And yeah, if you want to be published.
Amazing. I love that. I will definitely get you to send me all that information so then it will pop up when you're talking, which is sick. Amazing. Thank you guys all for listening. It's been a long one, but it's been an emotive one, and I hope you guys definitely learned something from it. I know I have. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Sarah DM. Listen to us again next week, and please stop reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Please. You know, we're sick. And there's just me like begging for myself for a little bit. But yeah, I shall see you guys until next week. Bye.
Bye.